Hello, my name is Euro and welcome to another Baldur's Gate 3 build video. In today's video I'll be showing you my samurai build, which is meant to be a pure fun and a thematic build that isn't meant to be anything overpowered or super busted that's gonna carry you throughout the entire game, just essentially like, so to say, a mood. The reason I wanted to make this build was because, of course, you can find a singular katana in Act 3, and I wanted to make a build centered around it. Now this will be a almost pure fighter build that has only one level in Monk, just so we can get the Monk's dexterous attack feature that allows us to use weapons that are not finesse with weapons that are not finessed, but that they will scale with dexterity instead of strength, for example, as longswords do. So for the character creation, I decided to go with the vanilla option, the human, but of course you can pick any other race of your preference, it really doesn't matter here. So as a human, we gain Civil Militia. This gives us proficiency with spears, spikes, halberds, and glaives, as well as proficiency with light armor and shields. Now this won't matter too much for us as we are a fighter and we have proficiency with pretty much all of the weapons and armors. But what is nice here is the human versatility. It gives you an additional skill to be proficient with, and you also have carrying capacity increased by a quarter. Now for our class, of course, we are going with the fighter. This gives us the second win ability, which is a 1d10 heal plus our fighter level, which is handy. Now for the fighting style, you have two choices here. You can go with archery or defense. Defense just gives you a flat out +1 bonus to armor class, which is generally decent to have. But I decided to go with archery because for the first 5 levels, we will be a dexterity based fighter, and I decided to focus on ranged weapons, because for our melee weapons we'll generally be carrying around short swords and scimitars. You can find 2 finesse longswords in the game, so you can actually start using those as your melee weapons until you get to level 6. Then is when we are going to multi-class into a monk so that we can start using generally all weapons with our dexterity instead of having them to be scaling with strength. As you may know, other fighting styles do not really scale or synergize with longswords, as they're not a heavy weapon or they're not either a dueling weapon. You can make it work if you have 2 longswords with dual wielding and 2 weapon fighting, but since there's only 1 katana in the game, we are gonna go, as mentioned before, archery and defense. For our ability points, we are going with 10 strength. 10 strength here is mainly so that we have a little bit of carrying capacity increase and a little bit of jumping distance. You can, if you prefer, remove it from strength and put it into charisma if this is your main character. But I have it preferably on strength. We have 17 dexterity. This is so that we have greater initiative and of course greater efficiency with our weapons. We do not gain any additional armor class because we are gonna of course carry the heavy splint armor. Constitution 16, just here to have additional HP. Constitution saving throws won't matter all much because we are not going to be concentrating on spells. And then we have 14 Wisdom. This is here mainly so that we have a greater chance of saving against Wisdom saving throw spells such as Hold Person. Now for our skill proficiencies, for the first column here, I have it into Survival. Now this is not my main character, so I had it in Survival to find those chests easier. But if this is your main character, you could put it into one of these dialogue skills, or even something like Investigation. But I will leave it for Survival for now. Now the second column skill, the first one I have it in Athletics, just because this helps you shove and resist being shoved. And then the second one I have in Perception to help with perception skill checks or perception rolls. Wow, that was a tongue twister for me for some reason. Or you could, maybe if you do not want perception, you could put it into acrobatics, which helps you resist being shoved. Or as well, you can put it into intimidation. So if you, let's say, put this one into performance or deception, and then put the second one in the second column into intimidation, you have now 3 dialogue skills sort of settled. But I will put this one into survival and this one into perception. Alright, so at level 2 we just unlock our action surge and we can move on to level 3. At level 3 we unlock our subclass and we are of course going with the Battle Master, because we gain the Battle Master maneuvers. Now the maneuvers we are going to take, the first one will be Riposte. This makes it so that when a hostile creature misses you with a melee attack, you can expend your superiority dice to retaliate with a powerful attack that deals an additional 1d8 damage. So this is great. If an enemy misses you, you can get a free extra attack on them as a reaction. For the second maneuver, we will take the Trip attack, which is a powerful attack that possibly knocks the target prone, meaning that you will gain advantage against prone enemies if they of course fail this save. And for our third maneuver, we will be taking the disarming attack. This makes it so that when an enemy fails the saving throw, you make them drop their weapon on the ground unless they are permanently armed, but if they're not and they drop their weapon, you can then pick it up off the ground to make them permanently disarmed, which is quite handy to have. At level 4, we get our first feat, and here we are taking ability improvement and we will put it into +2 dexterity. Now I should note that at this level, or at level 5, you cannot deal with anti-ethel to gain potentially another point into dexterity, so we can round it up to a nice 20. At level 5, we gain our extra attack and we can move on. At level 6, we are going to start our multi-class and put 1 point into Monk. This is going to give us the Flurry of Blows bonus action, which makes us so we punch twice in a quick session for 1 key point. We of course gain key points here. We get unarmored defense, which won't matter to us as we're wearing heavy armor, but we do gain martial arts dexterous attacks. Attacks with monk weapons and unarmed attacks scale with your dexterity instead of your strength if your dexterity is higher. And monk weapons are all weapons that we are proficient with, excluding two-handed weapons and heavy weapons. And of course, since a longsword or a katana is a versatile weapon, dexterous attacks will work with it. We also gain martial arts deft strikes. Attacks with your monk weapons and unarmed attacks deal 1d4 bludgeoning damage unless their damage is higher. And we also gain a bonus unarmed strike after we make an attack with a monk weapon or an unarmed attack. Moving on to level 7, we're gonna go back to our fighter here and unlock our second feat, and here we're gonna be taking the Savage Attacker. This makes it so that we roll an additional damage dice and we use the highest result, meaning we generally roll higher damage. At level 8, we unlock 2 additional maneuvers, and here I would suggest that you take Menacing Attack. This makes it so that if the enemy fails the save, they become frightened, they have disadvantage on ability checks and attack rolls, and they are unable to move. And for the second one, I would suggest you take the Precision Attack. This makes it so your next weapon attack gets a bonus equal to your superiority dice, so you gain a 1d8 bonus to your attacks, or a 1d10 at a later level when the superiority die gets upgraded. At level 9, we gain our third and last feat, and here I would suggest you pick up Sentinel. Sentinel makes it so that when an enemy within melee range attacks an ally, you can use your reaction to make a weapon attack against them. An ally must not have the Sentinel feat, and we also have advantage on our opportunity attacks, and we can hit a creature with an opportunity attack if a creature is hit by our opportunity attack, we make it so they're not able to move for the rest of its turn, which is quite handy. And of course, the advantage of opportunity attacks is very handy with our riposte, because of course we have advantage on that as well. At level 10, we unlock the Indomitable feature, which makes it so that whenever we fail a saving throw, we can roll again and use the new result. This is a useful feature to have because it can save you sometimes. At level 11, we unlock 2 additional maneuvers and we get our upgraded combat superiority, so the superiority dice is increased from a 1d8 to a 1d10. And then for the last 2 Battlemaster maneuvers, we will be taking the Pushing Attack, which allows us to push enemies away from us, our allies, or off of cliffs if they fail to save. And we will be taking the Maneuvering Attack, which allows us to give our allies forced maneuver, which makes it so they have 50% increased speed and they do not provoke opportunity attacks. And lastly, at level 12, we unlock our improved extra attack, so we can now make potentially 6 attacks in a single turn if we use our action surge. Alright, so that's it for the levels. I will now see you in the equipment section. Alright, so here we are in the equipment section. So for our headpiece, I went with the Scabby Pugilist Circlet. This makes your weapon and unarmed attacks deal additional 2 damage while surrounded by 2 or more foes. Now this by any means is not an amazing headpiece. I just went with it for its minimalistic looks, and mainly because I couldn't really find a helmet that resembled a samurai helmet that didn't look too goofy. So we're going with this. Now for the early game alternatives, you could go with the Haste Helm. This gives you momentum at the start of combat. Or the Helmet of Autonomy, which gives you proficiency in wisdom saving throws. For the cloak, we're going with the Cloak of Displacement. At the beginning of the wearer's turn, the cloak activates, granting enemies disadvantage on attack rolls that target the wearer, and this effect lasts until the wearer takes damage, essentially just giving you the effects of the Blur spell. Alternative cloaks you go with is the Cloak of Protection and the Flesh Melter Cloak. Cloak of Protection gives you +1 to armor class and saving throws, and Flesh Melter Cloak makes enemies take 1d4 acid damage when they hit you with a melee attack. For the armor, we're going with the Splint Armor +2. You take 1 less piercing damage. You also gain +1 bonus to strength saving throws and checks. Of course, we're going with this armor namely because it looks and it's the closest thing we can get to the samurai armor. For the alternatives, you can take the Adamantine Splint Armor or Adamantine Scale Mail, which these two are basically identical. It is just that the Splint Armor is a bit more powerful as it reduces incoming damage by 2, while the Scale does it by 1, and then when a melee attack hits you, you send the attacker reeling for 3 turns instead of the Scale Mail's 2 turns, and both of these armors make you immune to critical hits. For the gloves, we're going with the Gloves of Surging Accuracy. When you use Action Surge, you gain 1d4 bonus to attack rolls for the rest of your turn. This is great to use, this makes it so that if you use your Action Surge at the beginning of your turn, you have that 1d4 bonus for all 6 of your attacks, also for your 1 bonus action Monk unarmed attack that you can get, or potentially one with the Flurry of Blows. For the alternative gloves you can take are the Gauntlets of the War Master. Targets have disadvantage on saving throws against your maneuver and weapon actions. Now these gloves are much better than the Surging Accuracy gloves, but I prefer the Surging Accuracy gloves because of course we're going for that scale/splint armor. But again, if you want the better ones, Gauntlets of the War Master are better. For the boots, we're going with the Boots of Speed. These boots gives us the Click Heal ability, which is essentially just a dash as a bonus action, which is going to be crucial for us because this will give us a much greater maneuverability and mobility, because if we look here, our jumps are not too great because we have low strength. For our amulet, we're going with the Brood Mother's Revenge. Whenever the wearer is healed, their weapon becomes coated in magic and deals additional 1d6 poison damage. This is great for increasing our overall damage in general. For the ring, we're going with the Acoustic Band Ring. This makes our weapon attacks deal additional 2 acid damage, so even more damage in general. And then the Ring of Regeneration. At the beginning of your turn, the ring activates and heals you for 1d4. This healing at the beginning of your turn actually triggers the amulet, so you will have this 1d6 poison damage re-trigger every single turn that you are healed. So you will not need to be healed by any other of your companions, or you will not need to drink potions of healing to trigger this amulet. For the alternatives, you can take the Amulet of the Harpers. Advantage on wisdom saving throw checks and gives you 1 shield per long rest as a reaction. Or the Face Helmet's Amulet, which makes you have advantage on intelligence, wisdom, and charisma saving throws. For the alternative rings, you can take the Ring of Free Action, which makes you ignore the effects of difficult terrain and you cannot be paralyzed or restrained. Or the Ring of Protection, which gives you +1 to armor class and saving throws. For our weapons, of course, we are going with the Katana, which is essentially just a longsword +1 with no special weapon attacks, but it does have a unique look. For the alternatives, you can take the Falar Aluve. This will be the weapons that we would use before we get that monk level or before we get the Katana. So as mentioned before, Falar Aluve. This is a longsword +1. This is a finesse weapon that has the special Falar Aluve melody, which you can make the sword sing or shriek for 5 turns. Shrieking gives penalty to enemies, 1d4 penalty to enemies for charisma, wisdom, and intelligence saving throws, and also makes them take 1d4 additional thunder damage. While singing makes it so that you and your allies have a 1d4 bonus to attack rolls, charisma, wisdom, and intelligence saving throws. Out of these two, many would prefer the shriek because dealing extra damage to enemies is always great, because this extra thunder damage works, for example, even with something like magic missile, so this can get out of hand really quickly. Really an amazing longsword. For the second longsword, we have the Larethian's Wrath, which is again a simple enchantment +1 longsword that is a finesse weapon and has a special weapon action, the Razor Gale, which is a 4-meter radius attack in front of you that can strike multiple opponents at once. For our ranged weapon, we're going with the Hail Rider Longbow. Gives you +3 to initiative and advantage on perception ability checks. And once per turn, when we hit a creature with this weapon, we can possibly inflict it with Fairy Fire, which gives everybody who attacks that creature advantage on their attacks. This is an amazing longbow to have for us, because if we do need to use it with as our ranged weapon, we can potentially inflict Fairy Fire on an enemy, so our allies can also get the benefits. For the alternatives, we can take the War of Awareness, which gives us +1 to initiative, Hunting Shortbow, which gives us advantage against monstrosity type enemies and gives us Hunter's Mark once per long rest. Or we can also take the Gadriel's Aspiration, which gives us, like the Hunting Shortbow, advantage against monstrosity type enemies, and also gives us the Sacred Munitions, which makes it so our ranged attacks can possibly inflict turn undead on undead enemies. And if you pair this Sacred Munitions with the Arrow of Many Targets, you can actually potentially turn 8 or more undead in a single turn. And that is it for the equipment section. I will now see you in the battle showcase. Alright, so here we are at the Flaming Fists barracks for yet another battle showcase. So if you look here, our weapons are dipped in poison because our ring and amulet combination worked. So now, if you look at our accuracy, we have 80% on 16 armor class and 70% on 18 armor class. That is quite low for this late into the game, but it's understandable because we are using only a longsword +1. But what we're going to do is we'll activate Action Surge, and now our accuracy has increased by 10% because of this 1d4 bonus. But before we start whacking them with our katana, let's try to see if we can get Fairy Fire on any of them. So we'll use a Arrow of Many Targets with this guy here, and let's see. So the first target did get Fairy Fire on them, and if you look at the rolls, it says Fist Cross failed the saving throw against Fiendish Fire. So only he rolled against it, because the bow does say it works only once per turn. But if let's pretend he did succeed the saving throw and it hits Fist Colts, it would say here, Cross succeeded the saving throw and Colts failed. So you will have essentially with one shot 4 rolls, and then it will see which one fails the saving throw. And then after one of them fails, the rest of them no longer need to roll for the Fiendish Fire. So since he failed the saving throw, we will make him our primary target because we have advantage against him. So let's try to disarm him. Now, because he has high strength and proficiency in strength saving throws, I am not expecting to succeed on first shot or maybe even at all, because these guys have a quite good chance of saving. But let's look at the saving throws regardless. So if you look here, he succeeded a saving throw and he rolled a 23. So he got a 15 plus 3 plus 5, which is quite high. So he would be highly unlikely to succeed unless if you decided to equip the gauntlets of the War Master. He would then have disadvantage and your odds would be much higher. But even if he succeeds, that doesn't matter because we do deal additional 1d10 slashing damage. So we can keep on whacking him with the disarming attack to deal quite a bit of extra damage to him. And then, oh, look at that, we succeeded. We got lucky. So if you look at the roll, he did roll really low, but he still got 14, so he was rather close. Then we can pick up his halberd. We will trigger opportunity attacks, unfortunately, but we'll pick it up, and now he is permanently disarmed. He is going to now be just dealing punching damage, which is going to be much lower than his weapon damage. So now let's switch up targets, because we can leave him for allies, or we could just try to finish him off. Yeah, let's do that. Let's try to kill him. Oh, he's wiped out, and then we can switch targets. Now I think we have 1 or 2 more attacks left, so we could try to give our allies potential advantage against this guy if he does fail the saving throw or if we don't miss him. And we were lucky enough to hit him on the second shot and trip him. And now you have a choice if you want to move on to somebody else. For example, if I want to use our bonus action dash to move over to this cleric, or potentially get closer to this fist archer. But we're going to instead use our flurry of blows to deal more damage to this guy instead. Do keep in mind that you only get 2 key points, but you do restore them on a short rest. You can also, if your accuracy is atrocious still, you can try to get additional 10% from the precision attack. I believe it is 10%. It could be a bit more because it's a 1d10. But generally that is about it. You just rush in and start whacking people. Hopefully you inflict fiendish fire on them. If you don't, well, just try to get them prone to give yourself and your melee allies advantage. But that is about it. I hope you enjoyed. I would appreciate it if you leave the like and subscribe for more Baldur's Gate 3 content, and I will see you in the next one.